timer has started, so we can get going. Thank you for everybody for braving the rain and joining us. So let's just get right into it. Instead of doing introductions, perhaps we can do introductions in conjunction with talking about the topic here, CIO priorities. So I'd love to know for each of you, just introduce yourself, but also then talk about what are some of the priorities in your budgets for 2024? How have they changed and evolved, especially with all the things that we're seeing on the ecosystem here overall? Perhaps, Alan, we'll start with you.
Sure. I'm Alan Fazio, CIO for Houlihan Lokey. And what I would say is it's a twofold question. It's where's your budget and where's your focus? And I would say there's probably 5 imperatives that I think, at least in my world, we're facing. The first one is organizational alignment. There's never been a time, in probably in the last 20 years, where getting your executives to say where you're going is important. So CIOs are spending a significant amount of their time now getting organizational alignment versus building systems. Number 2 is innovation. Because of everything you've heard the last 2 days on AI and so forth, innovation is sucking the time out of CIOs and budget of how much we're going to deploy next year on innovation, which is putting pressure elsewhere in the organization. And then the 3 things that have been out there: cybersecurity compliance. Someone told me the other day, the compliance industry is booming. If I could buy stock in compliance, it'd be a great place to invest, because everywhere you go, every country you're in, compliance is taking more of a focus. Cloud and talent. So those are my kind of 5 focus areas when the budget goes right with them.
Awesome. Greg?
Greg Morse, CIO at KB Home. We also kind of look at things compartmentalized a little bit, and I divide them into different buckets. For me, the significant focus and spend is one around what I call enterprise initiatives, large-scale business enablement initiatives that are going to meet strategic priorities for our C-suite and the leaders within our organization. The second area is kind of the plumbing, behind the scenes necessary spend on the IT side to improve and stay current and not build legacy technical debt from our architecture and our environment. So we spend a good amount of time looking at our cloud infrastructure, our cloud spend, the network capabilities for our organization in a distributed work environment, and how we can best serve them in that area. Similar to Alan, cybersecurity and innovation are both areas that we contribute a significant amount of our spend to, and also talent, having the right people in the right places to run the systems we have and deliver the value is critical to our success.
Great. Michael?
Hi, Michael Keithley. I'm the CIO at United Talent Agency, just down the road here. A lot of commonality with both Greg and Alan around talent and trying to always have the A+ rock stars is an internal thing. Mergers and acquisitions and growth and supporting the company's initiatives around there is a big deal for us, and especially overseas. And then, surprise, surprise, AI from the board level, CEO, everybody really thinks that AI is, everywhere. And then as a technologist, kind of below that, I spent a lot of time and money and effort on building up kind of the modern data stack and Snowflake and tools like that. And I'm really wondering, is that the right data architecture to support my longer-term AI initiatives? And so I'm spending a lot of time really thinking about how that needs to evolve. And then cybersecurity, in our business, it's ever present. It's kind of boring on one level and exciting on another level. It's always changing. You're never done with it. And that's dominating a lot of my time.
Steve?
Mine's easy, just not get hacked. So everything I invest in is not getting hacked. But ultimately, hearing their strategies is ultimately also protecting not just the organization's investment, but their investments and strategies as well.
Awesome. So, you all talked about cybersecurity, so I do want to come to that. And Steve, maybe I want to start with you, given that you are a CISO for the Democratic National Committee, and we'll talk about that a little bit as well. But you just have a fascinating personal story of how you became a CISO, hacker turned cop turned CISO. Do you want to just talk a little bit about how you made that transition? And also, talk to us about the cool stuff you were doing as a hacker.
Yeah.
How that helped you.
It's unbelievable because everything about my career has been a complete accident. I mean, my family came over here right after the Vietnam War, didn't have the best upbringing, but it's not an excuse for my bad behavior. I mean, I just had to rely on my street smart to survive and get what I wanted. And within this context, what I wanted was free internet, right? And then I come across websites like Hasta La Vista, learn about pirating software, Trojans, and it's just stuck with me. And I'm grateful that I was recruited into law enforcement at an early age because that became my North Star, my new moral compass, and the discipline I desperately needed. And then I was able to then channel that from barely graduating high school to community college to now having a master's degree in Boston University, from Boston University. And I also never set out to be a CISO because I remember a time where security was the least popular job. No one wanted to work in my field, but I was like, hey, this is all I know. I'm happy just to have a paycheck. And then the next thing I knew, I woke up being a CISO for MGM Studios, working through multiple mergers and acquisitions, including the big one, the $8.5 billion acquisition with Amazon acquiring MGM Studios. And then now here, helping protect our democracy and addressing the myriad of risks that goes beyond just cyber.
So I would say, so let's start with you, right? I would imagine that given you're protecting democracy, we just had Super Tuesday yesterday, I would imagine you're probably at the forefront of the most sophisticated attacks and things that may be happening. Share with us, like, what are some of the priorities that you have and what are you trying to, what are you investing in, especially with elections coming up later this year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm constantly demystifying cybersecurity because I think a lot of people get the wrong impression that it's very command line, movie-ish stereotype. But the reality is we're still facing threat actors that are young, are not college educated, but they have street smarts, right? And I know what that's like. And they're coming up with ways to manipulate and trick college-educated professionals. And for me, my focus area is really broad and diverse because it's cyber and physical security. But when I think about what happened in 2016, not only do I have to address the shift in our threat landscape and address the new risks today, but I also have to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes. Because in our business, reputation and trust is everything. So when you're seen as an organization that is making the same mistakes over and over, you start to erode that trust, which is bad when it comes to gaining voter trust. So my core focus area, my top two, is still identity. Turning on multi-factor authentication is not enough. The type of multi-factor authentication that you use matters because you're seeing these threat actors coming up with creative ways to circumvent that control. MFA bombing, tricking people into giving up your one-time passcodes and your text message codes. So we invest in technology that allows us to rely heavily on non-phishable MFA methods to reduce our downgrade MFA attack surface and to now help us focus more on device trust so that we can only allow where people can actually sign in on top of all that. And then the last core focus area, I would say, is moving away from having physical servers. I mean, the amount of jokes that I get with email servers and physical servers, that I get here is pretty insane. But for those reasons, we take a cloud-first mindset, and with that comes with investments in cloud-native security tooling. Because from a security operations standpoint, cyber defense perspective, I'd rather have programmatic ways to do that than to carry a gear bag and chase down physical servers just to do forensics. And then also being able to now leverage the power of AI and programmatic ways to automate our alerting, detection, and response.
Very cool. So, Michael, starting with you, let's talk about cybersecurity, because each one of you actually mentioned it as a key priority area. Each one of you has a CISO in your organization reporting into you. How have your priorities shifted in 2024 and beyond as it relates specifically to cybersecurity?
I would say mine aren't really shifting as much as just continuing to evolve. And just hearing Steve talk about things, I view cybersecurity as a continuum of friction. I can make it 100% lockdown where I can guarantee nobody's going to hack us, no data is going to be exfiltrated, et cetera, but nobody can do any business, right? And so it's always that slider of where you are on that. And then the other thing is we know, kind of the blocking and tackling the first things we all need to do. SSO, MFA, you mentioned MFA. I was at a conference recently where Microsoft said of their largest enterprise customers, so these are all large folks that have enterprise agreements, only 22% of them have MFA turned on for the entire organization. So that's that friction. That's where people don't like the hassle of that. And even if it's a less secure MFA text message, at least it's something, right? And SSO. And so the continuum for me is really been around the move towards zero trust security, and never trust, always verify. And that's been a multi-year initiative. And a big part of that was eliminating the corporate network and getting on the cloud. Everything's live on the internet. You're constantly, verifying, and it's just a completely different approach than the old kind of defense in depth, castle and moat, kind of approach that we've had historically. And so it's really continuing to invest in that, and then looking at mostly startups that are really addressing some of those really, emerging areas and building out this zero trust environment. And in particular, I'm focusing on the data. We all talk about the quote unquote crown jewels, right? The visual I use with the board is this picture of the Mona Lisa. And if you've ever been to the Louvre and you see the Mona Lisa, you've got all these priceless art on all the walls with nothing really kind of protecting it. But the Mona Lisa has this big physical barrier, and it's on a stand, and there's kind of defense in depth on that. The other ones are priceless, but this is more priceless. And so I always say, what are our Mona Lisas? And I'm trying to identify what those are, and that's data, right? And so there's a company, CIOs, that we've invested in, and it's been fantastic. So really focusing on data, and I think that's been, over the last year, really the linchpin, I think, of our strategy.
Awesome. Great.
Similar to Michael, it's an evolution for us. I don't think 2024 is a hinge point or a marker of we're changing gears or shifting strategies so much as the evolution of the focus in cybersecurity continues to grow. I used to occasionally be asked to present to the board. Now I'm on the regular agenda, and they want updates on a regular basis. The compliance aspects are increasing with SEC disclosure requirements for incidents and things like that. So there's a ongoing effort to continue to be compliant and be a step ahead of that. As a public company, we don't really have a whole lot of choice but to make sure that we're not going to be the front page news of somebody who's not compliant. But beyond that, we focus a lot on, like Michael said, identifying the highest risk areas. What are the areas that for us present the most risk, both from a content data perspective, but also damaging to our brand? What are the things that could happen, and play those out? So the tabletop exercises that we do, the business continuity and disaster recovery planning and testing, and all of those things are really designed around worst case scenario. What would happen if this did happen, and how would we handle it? And making sure that we're prepared for that worst case scenario so we can execute a plan to mitigate that risk as quickly as possible. And a lot of focus there more than ever before, because it's very public and it's in the public forum with, as soon as you recognize a material level incident with material impact to your company, you've got to disclose that publicly within 4 days. There's no getting around everything that's the spotlight and what it's gonna look like at that point, so you've got to be ready for it.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. I mean, they covered almost everything. I would say two things. One, there's a great opportunity to consolidate products, right? We've done best of breed, and we've just, we've chased MFA, DLP, SIM. We've each year, we've gone after all these issues, and we've got a stack now of tech products. And if people walk in and go, I can eliminate 5 of those with mine, I think there's an opportunity right now in there. And the other thing is like the new things to scare me. I was sleeping really good for a while, and now I'm like, do I need browser security? Do I need API security? It just keeps moving. The needle keeps moving, and so there's these new areas of security. I've got auditors going through vendor management and regulators in Germany. It just never stops, and so trying to figure out what's the most impactful thing I can do to protect my company, especially with, I would say, emerging new threat vectors. So trying to figure those out.
Awesome. So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about innovation. Each one of you guys is an early adopter. You look at new technologies all the time. There's lots of startups out there. I think there's like over 100 startups here presenting, over the last couple of days. I want to talk a little bit about how do you, and Michael, perhaps I'll direct this question to you. In the ecosystem, your brand is sort of the intersection of Silicon Valley and Hollywood, right? So what steps do you take to stay innovative, to stay abreast of new and emerging technologies? How are you discovering, where the puck is going?
Thank you, first of all, for that. I spent a lot of time up on Sand Hill Road, to be honest. I try to spend at least a month up with venture capitalists. And I believe that, startups are inventing the future and venture capitalists are funding the future. And so if I want to see where the future is going to be applicable for my enterprise, I got to keep abreast of that. So I spent a lot of time up there doing that. And, it's not just the traditional VCs and the kind of speed dating and the kind of things that are kind of typical. I've really reached out and tried to do different types of approaches to venture capital. Some failed, like I've invested in a couple blockchain-based things that were going to disrupt VC and many different ways of doing it. And I really find that, if I can identify a new technology and we can go through a POC and really understand that it's safe and it works in our environment, I can get a first mover advantage that gives me a competitive advantage before it becomes mainstream and my competitors use it. And really that's kind of the driver. Also, it really helps me on the talent thing that we all talked about earlier. It's kind of a brand of this is where new stuff is, and if you want to skate to the puck, and that helps me attract really kind of world-class talent. And then, lastly, one of the things that really, you and I go back a ways back to Lightspeed days that really attracted me to GTM Capital, your current thing, is like the evolution of that. And I think about the model and how you have CIOs like us they're actually LPs, and we help vet this. It's really a game changer. And I kind of might want to turn it back onto you. And how do you think, what was the white space that allowed you to create this, or why did you feel like there was a need? And what do you feel is different about this model that I'm so excited about?
Happy to talk about it. So I founded GTM Capital after spending 7 years at Lightspeed, and it's a small $55 million vehicle. And really, I started it with venture is really about 3 things, right? It's about the team, the product, and the market. I believe, having worked with hundreds of folks like Michael and Alan and Greg and Steve, and that getting customers is actually the most difficult thing. And that is what actually determines if a startup is going to be successful or not. So I literally just asked myself a simple question. And it was like, hey, what if you could actually leverage the real-time purchase intent of hundreds of early adopters around the globe, CIOs, CTOs, CISOs, so that you could identify the next Zoom, the next Snowflake, the next Databricks, at the seed or Series A stage across the top VCs portfolios so that you can invest in them early and then singularly help them accelerate their go-to-market. And that's exactly what I do. So for example, I made my very first investment about 18 months ago and then helped them, we discovered them at the seed stage, invested in their subsequent round, and then singularly helped them get some game-changing customers. And it's not publicly announced yet, but that very first investment actually just became a unicorn last week. And that's not all, right? So with our model, because we come in and invest at a post-revenue stage, but the startups are still early, help them accelerate the go-to-market, our time to returns will be faster. We have lots of co-investment opportunities for our potential LPs because of the fund size. And we're co-investing with some of the best VCs in the world. My first 7 investments are alongside Sequoia, Excel. I just did my 7th investment, which is my first one with Lightspeed, Bain Capital, Insight, Glilad out of Israel. So that's the model. And really the white space that I saw was the blind spot in venture, the biggest blind spot in venture. It's not the team. It's not the product. It's really how each one of you individually will react to a given product. And if you can bring that together at a global scale, and given that I've been doing this for a decade, it was sort of I had to do it, and I'm glad that I did. So yeah, but yeah, thank you for asking that. Awesome. So Alan, I want to kind of come back to that idea of innovation, emerging startups. If there's founders in this room here, what advice do you have for how should they engage with you? What do you look for?
It's a great question because I'll tell you what not to do. Don't send me one earbud and say we can meet and you'll give me the other earbud, right? That's not it. That's not it.
A webinar, watch my webinar.
Or watch your webinar, or the cardboard piece of pizza and I'll send you a piece. I mean, yeah, we have a whole stack of them in the office. As I said earlier, the CIOs are getting stretched and pressured, especially over the next year or two, on innovation and getting a strategic vision out of their senior leadership, which means the bad news is they have less time and they're going to be harder to get to. The good news is they're going to have pressure on them to make decisions, and if you can match up with their want and need, they're going to move fast. And so when I work with startups, there's a couple things when I talk with startups, is one, do you have a absolutely just spot on elevator speech of what the heck you do, right? Can you tell me exactly, are you displacing something I already have? Is it something new that I need? Do I have that problem? Because I am quickly trying to figure out, if you can solve a problem I have, I'll talk to you right now and I'll talk to you tomorrow. And we've run into some things, especially in investment banking, where we haven't found a product sometimes that we're out looking. If someone will step into that space, I'll not only work with you, I'll proof of concept with you, we'll move quickly into your world. If you bring me something that's a displacement for something I have, I move a little slower. I'm okay right now. It's not an imperative for me to move forward. But what I find when I'm working with startups a lot of times, I'll say, tell me again what you do, right? And I have ADD, so I can only last about a sentence and a half into the conversation. But tell me what you do, and tell me how I should think about you. And I don't need when people come to visit me, especially vendors, they bring their presentation. I usually go to page 8. I'll do the first 7 pages for you. How you do something, here's a bunch of logos, here's a map with stars on it. Just tell me what you do. I don't have time. And so if you can just cut to the chase, what do you do? What value do you add? What problem if I have what problem, are you the solution to it? So that I can quickly go, I don't have that problem, or I don't think I have that problem. I never really thought about that problem. And so if you can dial me into you're solving something I need solved, you found your match. And if I'm not that match, move on. Go talk to Greg, go talk to Michael, go find someone else, because I don't have time. And I don't have time for your salesperson to go, hi, you haven't responded, and I know I'm being persistent. And again, because I know if I answer any of those emails, that goes right in your CRM and you send me 4 more of them, right? So again, if you can laser focus your pitch at what do you do, what problem do you solve, and why I might need you, home run.
Skip the PowerPoint, go straight to the demo.
Amen.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting you say, because that's actually, as you know, part of our process, right? We actually, every single founder, we work with them on, what's your elevator pitch? Can you tell me what you're building? And it's amazing, and I actually do this live with a lot of the founders. I'd say 97% of the founders cannot tell their story.
Yeah.
Like in a short period of time, like in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5, they can't tell their story.
I was working with a founder who I helped him, he got up on stage and he talked about his product, and he got off and I was waiting for him. I go, stop talking about your product, show it.
Yeah.
In 60 seconds, everyone will get exactly what you're talking about, and no one understood what you talked about. I did, I know what you're talking about. No one in the room, you didn't give him a compelling reason. And I gave him a tagline, go, here's your marketing message, use this now. But it was laser focused. And again, the founders are brilliant. They're doing amazing things with their technology, but they are not the best at selling it. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, startups by nature are early. If you're innovative, you're early adopter, there's going to be challenges, there's going to be obstacles along the way. Not to say that there won't be similar challenges with incumbents as well, but how do you, Greg, to you, like the question would be like, how do you prepare yourself and your organization for that? How do you deal with these challenges and unexpected surprises when you're engaging with a young, emerging startup?
Yeah, I would say you have to think about your audience, and you have to look at what are the barriers to entry and how you're going to prove your solution quickly and effectively and efficiently. For me, it's a big red flag if to do a proof of concept with your solution is going to require time and effort and complexity and integration and different components that I say, wow, so this proof of concept, can we do it in 2 weeks or 3 weeks? Can in 3 days you be showing me the answer to the solution and the value right out of the gate? Or is this a 6 or 8 week or 3 month process? That right there is a red flag to me that the overhead of your solution is a big decision and probably not worth it for me. When I look at what Alan said, what problem are you solving for me? What is the value proposition? Is it productivity? Is it efficiency? Is it lowering my cost? Is it reducing my risk or managing it better in some way? And what's that user adoption going to be like? Who is my target user, right? Is it cybersecurity professional on my team, or is it an end user out there that's going to be engaging or interacting with your solution? Big difference in how I sell that internally to get the adoption and acceptance of making a change. Most people will say, why do I need to change? Well, they don't know they need to change sometimes until you show them the value and the difference and how it's going to be better in productivity or efficiency or lowering their cost or what have you. So think about those barriers to entry and be able to deliver that message of how you can test it out on a small scale, quickly, rapidly, with low friction.
Yeah, sounds like time to value, being able to tell your story effectively, quickly, and sort of setting expectations is, maybe let's bring it to life. I mean, I recognize a few founders in the room, so let's try to see if we can be helpful to them. Maybe any one of you can jump in, perhaps talk about a startup that you discovered, how you engaged, why you engaged, maybe walk us through a little bit of that journey that could be educational for the founders here and how they may be engaged.
I could jump in and just build on what Michael said with our engagement with Sierra. I can tell you that the network of CIOs and how we collaborate is a critical success factor. I wouldn't say we gossip, but we share stories and we share information. 95% of the CIOs that I interact with, I don't compete with on a business basis. So sharing information is, transparency and sharing information is second nature to me, because every time I give, I get back 10 times more than I give. So I asked Michael about a business problem I was having, and he said, well, you need to look at Sierra. And I'll tell you, the engagement was fast, it was quick, and they proved what they could do in a very short amount of time and showed me the value. And it was amazing. I was like, I cannot not do this. And it literally was, I think I was sharing with Alan the numbers. It was half the cost of a competitive solution that's a little bit more,
Dated.
yes, that's been out there for longer and has more market share and a bigger name. But their cost was half the solution, and it did it better.
And just to kind of elaborate a little bit on that, the founder of CIOs is a great guy, and he said, how can I remove friction for more POCs, for more folks? And I said, make it easy. Anticipate the challenges. Legal's always a challenge, right? Do it on their paper. Be very accommodating. Have a checklist. Security, well, this is a security product, so it's not as relevant in there, but if it's not a security-related thing, have that checklist. What's the impact to the network going to be? What's the impact to, all the rest of IT in the organization? And try to eliminate all those things. And I think Sire did a fantastic job of doing exactly that.
I think both of you guys bring a really interesting point as well, which is, again, for the founders in the room, every impression that you make with a potential customer is not just an impression for that prospect. It's an impression for their community. Because I bet all of you guys are part of WhatsApp groups. I know we have our own separate group that's global, but you guys are also part of local groups, and there's dinners that happen. And I'll tell you, there is actually an influencer model in enterprise selling. It's not just about selling to one-on-one. If you sell to one influential CIO and you give them a great product and a great experience and it does what it says it does and more, they'll go and tell all their other friends about it. And vice versa.
That word of mouth carries a long way.
A long way.
Way more than any analyst or anybody else that's a quote-unquote expert.
That's right.
And it's the opposite is also as powerful. If you screw up or you overpromise and underdeliver, you can, that will probably spread even faster potentially. So it's I would say every impression is very critical. Sorry.
Yeah, and we hunt in packs, right? I mean, Michael's one of the most connected, gracious CIOs in LA, and so a lot of people will know Michael. But then I would say there's a whole government and a government, all the government heads, they run in a pack, and our packs kind of run over each other. But there's certain topics that transcend either industry, et cetera. There's a Hollywood, I'd say there's a Hollywood pack that runs around and knows each other. There's a healthcare pack. But again, we run in packs because no one can make it as a CIO right now on their own. And so we talk all the time, and if you can find those connectors, you're really not selling to one person, you're selling to 12 simultaneously. So, and when Michael said he goes up to Silicon Valley once a month for a week and gets all this great information, I just take him to dinner after that and get all that information. So it's way more effective depending on how much we're eating and drinking. So just.
And I let Alan pay.
So I do have a few more questions, but are we okay to let the audience ask questions? Does anybody have questions? Yeah, please speak up. We may not have a. Sorry, who?
No, it's a great. You want to go first? Go.
Well, just I'm also a Wiz customer, and Wiz has a DSPM product, if you will. To me, data, because of my Mona Lisa thing, is the most important thing. Sire is just laser focused on that, and I don't think any of the other players are going to have that laser focus. I think it'll be a check mark on their portfolio, and we've seen this pendulum go back and forth. Especially in the cybersecurity space, I think it's probably more. There's more inertia to make this happen. But things, we all desire a single pane of glass, a single vendor, et cetera, et cetera. But I just think in this particular area, it's moving so fast, you need laser focus.
And if I may, maybe we, sort of parachute up and, and please tell me if I'm wrong in interpreting your question. I think perhaps what you're asking is how do you guys as customers sort of make your bets when an incumbent can potentially provide part of that solution, or versus a point solution? You know,
Well, let's talk about this scenario, right? So we've been burned so many times. So first, step one, they buy it. Step two, they sell it. Step three, they integrate it. And step four, it works about 2 years later. So we've all been burned enough with, look what we just bought, right? And they've never talked to each other. They haven't integrated anything. So once the purchase is made, I would say there's a scale of credibility that we look at of day one. I don't care you bought it. It doesn't work with your product yet, even though you'll sell it immediately. So there's a time period that has to happen. So maybe they'll get there. I don't have 2 years to wait. So when I see, again, dead-on point solutions that solve a problem, I'll go grab them. And in 2 years, maybe someone will come. I can knock that out with my product, but it's not going to be tomorrow. It's not going to be 6 months from now.
That should give hope to every single startup founder in here, right? I think these guys have just given you some selling points on how to sell your point solutions for them. Go ahead, yeah.
I'll also add, so 2 lenses. Through the lens of the founder, don't forget the world is a very big place. A lot of smart people and a lot of more than one right answer. And like my panelists here, very intelligent, and I respect them a lot. And I go to the community, like Alan mentioned earlier, because I don't know everything. My viewpoint's not always the best, but ultimately, there are customers that are looking for what you have. So don't always assume that we have the same spending habits and architecture and model, because for me personally, I want optionality, one, but then for the bigger players, they never talk about the total cost of ownership until we get burned later on and realize there were all of these hidden costs. Bigger is not always better.
Yeah.
Agree.
Great. Feel free to raise your hand if you have any other questions. I'm actually surprised that, sorry, go ahead, Prakash. Yeah, it's very loud. Yeah.
So I'll say when we make an investment in a newer, innovative solution and a startup, we a lot of times expect that the solution is going to continue to evolve. And one of the most important things you can do is keep us engaged on the roadmap and how are you developing additional capabilities and what does that mean to me? I was a, design partner. I was a initial client in the first 50 or 15 or whatever it might be. How are you going to add value continuously? Don't just say I made the sale and I moved on to everybody else and thanks a lot, please give me a reference. Keep us engaged with where are you going with the product, what's next, and how can that continually benefit me? Keep me hyped up on your solution so I want to keep talking about it.
Yeah, and keep the relationship between you and me. The sales guy made the sale, he's going to go off on something else. He doesn't really care. The customer service person that you assign to me, I'll assign them to somebody lower level to make sure that's successful. We need to keep that relationship for the roadmap stuff that Greg just mentioned, but also just for networks. I can't tell you how important the networks are of fellow CIOs or founders or VCs or what have you. And the surprising things that happen and the goodwill and the good network of years later pays off tenfold, hundredfold for you.
Yeah. And let me just tap on, be the right kind of friend, okay? I've got 17 things in my tech stack, right? I don't need all 17 of them calling me every week with their new capability. So again, ask, hey, when do you want me to check in? Once a quarter, once every twice a year? Hey, when I have something that's on your radar? If we have the right relationship, you'll know immediately, I don't have time for everything. But I'll pick up the phone every time you call. If every time you call, it's, listen, I know you only got a couple minutes. How's the kids? Great. And here's what's new in our product. Might be interesting to you. Hey, thanks a lot. Boom. Right? If you'll have the right relationship with me and not try to be my best friend, right? My best friends are all giant companies because I have to talk to them all the time, right? It's okay, right? It's okay. But if you have the right relationship and the right connection, I'll take your call every time because you're helping me, not, oh, God, I don't have time for another pitch.
Yeah.
So
I think that's great advice, and I think one of the things that I tell founders all the time is that, and I'm frankly reminded of it myself now as a founder, nobody's thinking about you as much as you're thinking about yourself. And every interaction you would have with a potential customer, existing customer, prospect, make sure you add value. So to Alan's point, you're not just calling for the sake of, like, how are your kids or whatever, shoot the shit. Give him very quickly, here's the updates, here's where we're going, here's what's exciting. Keep him engaged, keep him excited, right? So
we think about you all the time.
Sorry?
We think about you all the
Oh, you
time.
think?
Don't worry about it.
Thanks. So one last question. We're running out of time, but I think this rain may keep us in here anyways. But I'm surprised Gen AI hasn't come up, right? In all these conversations we've had so far, there's been panels here. So from your perspective as practitioners, is Gen AI just hype? Are you thinking about it? Is it too early? Where is it in the maturity scale for your own organizations, and how are you thinking about it? So, yeah.
And this is coming from a security person. I think it's a great tool and something that we should embrace, right? If we were always avoiding risk 100%, we would get nothing done, right? Everything has risk. So the best we can do is how well we can manage those risks. So from a security perspective, what I'm most excited about is how now that can help me personalize security at scale versus without it, it would require a whole lot of human and manual effort, right? So now I anticipate that it's gonna move me away from trying to implement a one-size-fits-all security model to more of a personalized security model.
I think it is a lot of hype, and we're at the top of that hype cycle. And there's not when our C-level executives have it on the tip of their tongue in every conversation with us, they're asking about what we're doing and how it impacts the company and their ideas about it. Yeah, it's probably overhyped. But I don't think it's a passing fad that 2 years from now we're going to say, yeah, that AI thing, right? There are practical use cases that add value, that are game changers in automation and efficiency and making better decisions faster with better information that we can do. And if you can harness that and really show the money to your users, that adoption will come, and these will become second nature for us. That's the way we do it, 2 years down the road.
Are there any use cases in which any of you have deployed a Gen AI type of a solution, even if it's a point solution, yet?
Well, yes, we have, but I'd like to back up a little bit. Gen AI with ChatGPT, the last 16 months or so, that's been, everything's talking about. But I remember years ago, sitting in Greylock with the EIR, that became abnormal security. And we've been a customer of theirs for a long, long, long time. And that's AI in a different context, not generative so much, but natural language processing, natural language understanding. And it's been a game changer for us as far as like incoming phishing and email-based security. And I think there's just a lot of areas that AI is robust already. Now, Gen AI, okay, we've taken Microsoft's Azure, we front-ended that, we made it safe, we did some gamification for upvoting and downvoting for prompts. We've educated people. We've got some amazing use cases out of it. I think Gen AI is going to be a thing for sure, but I wouldn't lump all AI together with just Gen AI.
Right. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would say two things. As an investment bank, we think we've kind of consolidated into two thoughts. A banker with AI is better than a banker, and if we only knew what we know, right? If I can unleash the power of AI inside my company just to know what we know, those are two very powerful things. And I'm very bullish. I think this is the next revolution, right? I think the AI revolution is that. And I think to the point, it's not ready, but you better get your company in the game so that when it is ready, you're not at the starting line, you're already running down the field. And so we're very bullish about it, how we approach it and how we step on it, step on our toes and trip. And we're not going to be there tomorrow, but I need innovative people who aren't afraid to go on this journey so we can figure it out. So,
very good. I think that's all the time we have. Thank you for everybody for joining. Thank you to each one of you for taking the time to meet. And
Thank you.
have a wonderful rest of the conference. Thank you.